So I'm going to put it on YouTube too.
Okay, I'm just going to do that many.
I'd like to welcome everybody today and thank you for coming. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about the love of God, because I'm being given information by St. Germaine that we need to bring the love of God back to our planet. You know, during the last couple of years, they didn't allow churches to even gather more than a couple of people at a time. And it took away from all of us who wanted to continue to worship, continue to serve God and to love God. And it was really interesting. We went to a place in Georgia, in McKaysville, called Delphi University. And at that university, when we got there, they described to us, our chapel is just absolutely beautiful. It's a temple, and it's dedicated to all religions. But as we went over there, they told us, yeah, it's $250 a day to rent for a lecture. And, I was questioning whether or not to use it because, $250 for 2 lectures is $500. And so I wanted to at least look at it to see if that's where we were supposed to go. And we walked in, Vicki and I. Vicki was with me, and we found this beautiful temple they had built there in McKaysville. And the temple was filled with beautiful, beautiful pictures of ascended masters and beings. But they had a huge painting called the Cosmic Christ. And as I looked at it, you couldn't help but feel the Christ conscious energy. And Vicki walked up to it, and she put her hands by the hands of Jesus. And I'll show you a picture of this in a minute. But she could feel the energy from Christ emanating from this painting. And she says, Scott, come over and feel. And so I went over and I started feeling the energy myself. And it was this amazing energy that I felt when I had actually had encounters with Jesus. And, it's amazing how that energy is still available to all of us. And I heard a message, Jesus talking to me, you're to bring back devotion, worship, energy sending to God, your love. And I was like, okay, am I supposed to give my lectures in here? And he said, yes, you're supposed to give your lectures in here. And so I told the people there that we did want to lecture there, and we're going to have 2 lectures in there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this because, we've all heard of Jerry and Esther Hicks, and they're teaching the law of attraction, and they just, they really hounded it to teach people that whatever you desire, you need to put that energy out into the universe. And by the law of attraction, it will attract it back to you. And as I contemplated and, listened to the message of Jesus, he told me that through the law of attraction, whatever we put out into the universe comes back to us. And we create what we put our focus on and our attention on. And the God's love meditation was foremost in my mind because I was supposed to talk about that, but I wasn't going to talk about it till the 3rd day, the 3rd lecture. And that night, I received a lot of information from St. Germaine. I mean, I couldn't sleep all night. It was weird because both Vicki and I were up all night. But I was receiving really important information from St. Germaine and Jesus. Now, oh, I guess I got to turn this on for it to work. There we go. So hopefully it'll work. There we go. So our life experiences, every one of us is in pursuit of something more. Abundance, better health, more nurturing relationships, personal order, progress, simplicity, and effectiveness in our life. However, the level of attainment is not based on our skill or worthiness, but rather the perception of what is possible. Now, common causes of energy imbalance and negative emotions: we have unresolved past conflicts. We have repressed emotions that have actually been buried within us. We have spiritual detachment, which a big part of that happened during the last couple of years because of the government's restrictions and all these things. We are eating improper food. We don't get enough exercise. We don't get enough sleep. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, are hitting us from our cell phones, from our TV sets, from everything around us. You know, the 5G is at a vibration that it even heats up our blood and causes problems. Now, these toxic exposures are, you know, even the things that are being given to people, they are toxins, and they're creating more health problems in people. And so we have unhealthy relationships. You know, we've been taught, do whatever you want, which means, you know, a lot of people are failing to follow the laws of God, the sanctity of marriage, the sanctity of teaching our children about God, and all these things. We're actually creating a society that is removing us from the laws of God. And they've removed the 10 Commandments from all the federal buildings. And it's moving us in a direction away from God and away from worshiping God, devoting ourselves to God, doing those kind of things. And so it's made for some very unhealthy relationships. People, when they feel they like somebody, instead of developing a relationship and doing it the way God intended us to do, people are just going straight to having sex, which sex is not love and love is not sex. But all the movies, the shows on TV, all of these things are giving us a wrong perception of what love truly is. Love is being devoted. Love is worshiping, believe it or not. So we need to develop a true love, like our love for God is the most perfect love. And when Christ was asked the question, what is the greatest commandment? He said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself. Who's your closest neighbor? Is the person that you live with. And so you should love them with all your heart, mind, and soul, and not be removing yourself from that energy. Oops, where'd that go? Okay, so our human ego and desires are, we want ease in our relationships. You know, we don't work on them as like our parents did. Our parents worked on their relationships and developed loving, kind relationships. They, you know, my parents have been together for 60 years now, and they didn't get married until my dad. I was 10 years old, but they're still together, and they love and adore each other, and they put their desire only for each other. You know, we worry about financial abundance when we should remember that when we are in alignment with God, God provides everything for us. He provides our food, our clothing, everything that we need. And we've forgotten about that. And we think we have to go out there and earn the almighty dollar for everything we get, but we actually have an overabundance of things because we've become a consumer society, especially here in the United States. And we've bought a whole bunch of stuff that we don't really need. I mean, how many pairs of shoes can you wear in a week? You know, it's like, and I'm guilty of some of this. So just know that I'm trying to reduce all my things, because whatever you have in your possession, it takes away from the energy of producing and creating other things, because all your energy's on your boat or your jet skis or your, you know, your vehicles. All these things take our energy. And it's better to reduce the amount of things in your life so your energy's not going out so much into these things. Because even our clothes have our energy, and our shoes have our energy, you know, our objects in our house. And so, you know, we always think we need a bigger or better or more complete thing. And we're focusing on ourselves. We're pleasure seeking rather than seeking God. We limit our perspectives by doing these things. And we want to know why challenges happen. A lot of challenges are because we've got our energy out in too many things, and it distracts us from what we truly should be putting our energy on, which is loving God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and loving our neighbors the same. So spiritual and soul desires are to master yourself, master your emotions, master your mind. You know, bring your mind into alignment with God. And, you know, when God had us going to church once a week, they found that after about 6 days of being out in the world, you start forgetting about God. You start forgetting to pray as much. You start, you know, the world just literally takes our energy away. And so on the 7th day, God rested, and He told us to rest from all of our design in the world and focus on God for just 1 day a week. And what that actually does, it realigns you to the energy of creation, to the energy of love, to the energy of wholeness and being in oneness. And so these kind of things are very important. We can expand our consciousness. We learn through all our adversity. In fact, when we're connected to God, the adversity actually dissipates and goes away. We have life is a school. We actually learn from our experiences. You know, I get so many people out there that are having diseases, having problems because they're listening outside of their self. They go to people and let their health be controlled by people who are working for industries that just want to control us from crib to crate with medications and different things that cost us a lot of money. And we have to pay insurance because, you know, we want the insurance to pay for all these medications. You know, Vicki and I were talking about last night how by the time people are 62 years old, they're on 12 different pharmaceuticals average. So some are on more, some are on less. Luckily, I'm only taking one, which is insulin, because I need that to keep my blood sugar down a little bit. And I've actually reduced that down to a minimum. So the 2-year supply I bought 2 years ago is still a 2-year supply. And we can do this by manifesting. I've manifested my body being less insulin resistance. I take herbs that cause my body to be more accepting of the minor amount of insulin I am taking, that it keeps my blood sugar within a good limit. And so I've been able to keep my A1C down below 4.2, and that's really good glucose control. But I've quit eating sugars. You know, one of my favorite things used to be eating ice cream. It was very delightful for my taste buds, and you know, and all this stuff. But I quit. I quit taking sugars in because I put in my mind that they're the poisons that caused my diabetes, and so I removed them from my diet, and it keeps my sugars much better by just eating proteins and good vegetables, good organic things. A lot of our pancreatitis that's occurring currently, you know, it's gone up literally 3,000%. Pancreatitis used to be a rare thing, but now 1 in 12 people are developing pancreatitis, which is ridiculous. And it's all the toxins, chemicals, heavy metals in our diets, you know, fast foods, preservatives, glyphosate. You know, we've covered the planet in these vivicides. Glyphosate was first acknowledged and patented as a vivicide. It kills everything. And then they reduced the doses and found it still killed all the plants. But what's interesting is it's in our food, it's in our water, it's in everything now. And so we need to bless our water, to purify it, to put God's energy in it, to reduce the chemicals and toxins and heavy metals. There's meaning in all things. When you're on a spiritual path, everything teaches us something. And we're here to learn, but the most important lessons we need to learn are about love. Loving God, loving ourselves, loving our neighbor. Just think what a beautiful world we would have if everybody did that. You know, we wouldn't have the problems that we're currently having. So greater love is very important, and we need to trust in the process of God. So the history of limitation, most of us grew up in a culture or family where we had to eat all our food before leaving the table, do our chores before we could play, work until the job was done, and I'm guilty of doing this myself, and save our money for a rainy day rather than buy something we wanted. Living in scarcity and limitation. It's time to move back into the power of God. And with that, we need to stop doing these things that we've been taught and do what God has taught us to do. Because if we follow what we've been taught, we get unhealthy eating patterns. Are buying expensive things like clothes, jewelry, products that don't get used, not wanting to waste them, you know, but it's interesting what happens to us. Believing that there is a cap on our financial resources, feeling less than our peers. Life is hard and burdensome rather than joyful. So we need to co-create with God. That's a very powerful statement. God is love. Devotion is divine. Worship sends that devotion and love to God. And guess what? The universe was made with God's love and with the law of attraction. Every time you send your devotion and love to God, guess what happens to us? It comes right back to us. And we receive that, and it's a beautiful thing, and it changes our lives for the better. Oh. Okay, so that's the first one, so I got to get to where I was. Okay, so when we send our worship and devotion to God, we receive God's love and devotion right back to our heart, mind, and soul, 20 to 200 times what we send out. And it's interesting because since I learned God's love meditation, I breathe in God's love, and then instead of bringing it into myself, I shoot it out, back out to the universe. or to the AI, because I've been told if we feed